Hey guys, today I want to take a look at Mike Pence's potential 2024 presidential run, and that is one without the support of Donald Trump. It's pretty unlikely at this point that Donald Trump will come out and support Mike Pence over many other candidates that Trump feels has been more loyal to him than Mike Pence. Mike Pence had been a pretty good vice president to Donald Trump for the last 4 years before the Capitol insurrection, before Mike Pence certified the electoral college victory of Joe Biden. So that was really what created the rift between Trump and his former vice president. And that is going to be an issue for Mike Pence, juggling between his persona as the vice president to Donald Trump and as someone that doesn't even have the support of Donald Trump. Now, Mike Pence, as a former vice president, if he runs in the 2024 Republican Party primary, there's a chance that he will be running against Donald Trump, and I don't think that will go too well for him. But he's also much younger than Trump, and there's a big chance that Trump does not even run in 2024. And for Mike Pence, he's only 61 years old. He may look a lot older than that, but Pence is only 61 years old, which means that age really won't be as large of a problem for him as many other candidates. Now, the issue why people are saying that Mike Pence is not supported by Donald Trump is when Trump asked about the future leaders of the Republican Party, he named people like Josh Hawley, Ted Cruz, and Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. These are people who have been very loyal to him, and Mike Pence, I would say, has been loyal to Trump as well, except he did not support Donald Trump in his effort to overthrow the Electoral College. So that's the one thing that Mike Pence was not loyal to Trump about. They since have made up. It's been reported that after the insurrection in which Pence was personally in danger, the two have made up and worked together to finish their 4 years. However, it wasn't exactly the best. They did not leave on the best of terms. So I think that if Trump won in 2024, Mike Pence would have a very good chance at picking up the torch of the Republican Party. But now that they lost, and after everything that happened between him and Trump, he does not look like the strongest candidate ever. So today I want to take a look at if Mike Pence can defeat Joe Biden in a general election. So this is if Mike Pence is selected and chosen by the Republican Party to nominate them in 2024. So before we get started, make sure you join my Discord server if you have not, the link to which is at the very top of the description below. So I'm going to start off with the solid states for Joe Biden, and in this case with Mike Pence as the GOP nominee, I'm going to give Joe Biden Colorado as a solid state. You saw the margin here in 2020 was 13.5%. Go back 4 years in 2016, the margin here was just 4.9%. So Joe Biden did very, very well in the state of Colorado, and I think he could do that well in New Mexico as well. New Mexico has been a solid state in the past. You look back at 2008, 15.1% for Barack Obama when Joe Biden was also on the ticket. You saw that Trump did moderately well there in 2016, but I think that in 2024, Joe Biden can definitely win New Mexico with more of a solid vote because Donald Trump has more appeal to some of the states that Barack Obama won in 2008 than Mike Pence does. So there'll be 89 electoral votes for Mike Pence, and then adding on his northeastern solid states, definitely all these states are going to be solid. He won all of these states by a solid margin in 2020. Some of them were not solid for Hillary Clinton, but for Joe Biden, they definitely were. The 1st District of Maine is also pretty solid, as well as the state of Illinois. On top of this, I'm actually going to include Virginia as a solid state for Joe Biden. If you look at the margin here in 2016, Clinton only won the state by 5.3%. Joe Biden 2020 now has won the state by 10.1%. And you saw the shift from 2020 and 2016 in Colorado. It was 13.5%, and remember 4 years ago, it was only a margin of 4.9%. So definitely it's not going to be 100% that Virginia is going to be solid, but I think that there's a pretty good chance that Joe Biden can increase the margin here by around 5 percentage points. Virginia does continuously get moved to the left, and Mike Pence is a weaker candidate for Donald Trump, so I think this is definitely possible. I don't think the issue is many Trump voters flipping to Joe Biden. I think that could definitely be a small issue, but I really think that the major issue here is that people will not be as motivated to vote for Mike Pence as they were for Donald Trump. I mean, Donald Trump got 75 million votes. That's the second largest amount of votes for a presidential candidate in history. The only one that's gotten more is Joe Biden, around 81 million votes. So that's the issue for Mike Pence here. And the solid states for Mike Pence, there really aren't as many as there typically would be for a stronger Republican candidate. However, most of Nebraska, North, South Dakota, Wyoming, Idaho, Utah, and then you have most of the South, I think is all going to be solid for Mike Pence. I will also include Indiana as a solid state. I think definitely his connection to the state will help him. If you look at the 2020 map, you saw Indiana was solid, 16%. Then in 2016, this was the first election when Pence was on the ticket. They won Indiana by 19 points. Now look back just 4 years, 2012, the state of Indiana went to Mitt Romney by 10.2%. Now that was an okay margin, but it was really a strong margin considering that in 2008, Indiana was in Obama state by 1%. So Romney made huge gains. Pence made even bigger gains. 2020 was a little bit less, but so I think Pence definitely helped a lot for Trump's solid margins in Indiana, and I think that he'll be able to pull this one off, especially as Indiana is still moving to the right as we speak. So that's going to be 85 electoral votes in the solid states for Mike Pence. And before going any further, I want to take a look at the popularity of the former vice president. So Mike Pence currently has a net favorability rating of -4. Now that is pretty strong. That's stronger than Nancy Pelosi's, Chuck Schumer's, as well as Kevin McCarthy's. There's all in the negatives. That's also more popular than Donald Trump. Now, this does not mean that Mike Pence is more popular among Republicans, against Trump. So if you had Pence versus Trump among Republicans, which is what he's going to need to gain the support of the Republican Party, Trump is definitely going to be way more popular than Mike Pence. I mean, Mike Pence wasn't a really well-known guy before he was Trump's VP. So his favorable right now stands at around an average of 41, unfavorable 45. However, if you take a look at the polls they use some of them from the beginning of January, and that was when Mike Pence was the most popular because that was right after the Capitol insurrection. And, he voted to confirm the Electoral College victory of Joe Biden. So that was when Pence was really the most popular. Before this, he was a moderately popular vice president. I mean, as a guy in politics, he's around -10. Which seemed to be his average, -5 to 10%. It's not horrible, but definitely nothing that he should really be happy about. Joe Biden's approval, which does tend to be a little bit lower than favorability, Joe Biden's approval rating right now is around plus 11, 12%. So just to put that into context for you, Joe Biden is quite a bit more popular than Mike Pence, but Mike Pence is much more popular than Donald Trump. We can actually look at Trump's favorability here. The favorability of Donald Trump right now is -13.7. So that's actually all right, but definitely he's less popular than Mike Pence. So Mike Pence now has 85 electoral votes. I'm also going to give him Montana, Kansas, Missouri, Mississippi, South Carolina, and Alaska as likely states. I think definitely Kansas, Missouri, and Mississippi, Trump would have done better than Pence. Mississippi was only 16% for Trump, Missouri 15.4, Kansas 14.7. I think conservatives will be less motivated to turn out for him. Montana, same thing. It wasn't that strong of a margin for Trump. I think it definitely turned likely in 2024. And I mean, these states, they're not they're pretty familiar to being likely states. If you look at 2012, 2008 even, so 2012 here, Mississippi was a likely state, Missouri was a likely state, as well as Montana. Montana was a likely state as well. So it's not that these states haven't been likely, and I'm just giving these states to Pence just because it's a weaker candidate. These states, they're not as solidly red as you would typically expect. They're less solidly red than states like Delaware and New Jersey for the Democrats. So I do think that Mike Pence, however, will do better in Alaska than Donald Trump. I think it could definitely be around 13, 14%, maybe even over 15, but I think that's unlikely. The Republicans haven't really been doing it as well, since Sarah Palin was on the ticket. And of course, she made all the difference there in Alaska. John McCain won by 21%. And then 2012, it's been likely ever since. So 2024, I think it's not looking great for the Republicans in Alaska. The state just hasn't been as red as it's been historically, but still, Mike Pence, I think, will pull off a pretty good victory there. South Carolina as well. I think the margin will be pretty strong for him compared to Trump. So that's 123 electoral votes for the former vice president. Now, for the incumbent president, there are quite a few likely states for him, starting off with the state of Minnesota. Minnesota, I think, is going to be likely, as well as the state of New Hampshire. So not actually that many, but the main at-large vote, I think, will be likely as well. Minnesota, it was 7% for Biden 2020, as well as New Hampshire on 7.1%, I believe. Joe Biden did 7% better than Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton won this state by 0.3%. and she won Minnesota by 1.5%. So huge gains for Joe Biden and the Democrats in these two states. There's no way it's going to go over solid. There's no way it's going to go over 15% in these states, but I think definitely Joe Biden's a good candidate. You saw Jean Shaheen won her Senate race in New Hampshire by a solid margin, but Joe Biden, she's not from the region particularly, so I think it'll be a little bit more difficult for him to win by a solid margin than, say, someone that's literally from the state. Another likely area for Mike Pence I forgot to leave out was the first district of Nebraska. That's going to be likely for him, like it was for Trump. And then the second district, I think Joe Biden will actually win the second district by a likely margin in 2024. So that's 220 right now to 124. Moving on to the lean states, I'm going to start out with Texas. I think Texas will definitely be a lean state for Mike Pence. Now, I just realized I forgot to put Hawaii, so if you noticed that, sorry about that. Hawaii's definitely very solid, although it's moving to the right. It's really not moving fast enough. 2008, the margin here, 45%. 2012, it went to 42%, to 2016, 31%, and then now 2020, just 29%. So it's still a very, very blue state, but you can tell it's much less blue. Also, Barack Obama was from Hawaii, so that also helped him a little bit there. But Hawaii is really not as liberal as it used to be. But that will give now Joe Biden 224. But Mike Pence, I will also give him Iowa and Ohio. So the reasoning behind the call in Texas is I think that Mike Pence maybe even might do better than Donald Trump in 2020 in Texas. Trump won Texas by 5.6%, but Mike Pence is more of a traditional Republican, and I think that's a little bit more of what Texans vote for. You saw John Cornyn do pretty well there, while Ted Cruz did pretty poorly in Texas in 2018. John Cornyn did pretty well in 2020. So, they like someone that's less controversial. And Mike Pence, I think, definitely does do that for Texans compared to Donald Trump. So I think he might even do a little bit better because Trump has not been good for Texas. 2012, this was a solid margin. 2016, 9%, and then 2020, 5%. So definitely Trump has not been good for the state of Texas and the Republican Party, but he has been good in the states of Iowa and Ohio. I mean, really, really good in Ohio and Iowa. 2012, Obama won Iowa by 6%, Ohio by 3%. 2016, Iowa, 9.4%. This was a 15-point shift. I mean, that was huge. Ohio, 8%. I mean, he could have won these states by 1-2%, but he won them by 8 and 9%, almost 10% in Iowa from a state that was blue by 6% for Barack Obama just 4 years previously. So this was, just how weak Hillary Clinton was. And those voters in 2020, they stuck with Trump. Trump won Ohio by basically the same margin, while the margin in Iowa went down by around 1%. So 2020 was good for Trump in these two states. Honestly, he did great in these states. He destroyed the polling numbers in these states, but still, Mike Pence, again, is not Donald Trump. Mike Pence is not going to have that appeal. Of course, they do well here. You saw that Joni Ernst defeated Teresa Greenfield in the Iowa Senate race, but she only won by around 7%. And Mike Pence, I don't think, is going to do better. They are close in Indiana, but, being close to a state, I mean, really doesn't do that much for you. So yeah, it's going to be 188 electoral votes now for Mike Pence. As for Joe Biden, I have a couple more calls for him. I think that Nevada will definitely be a lean state for Joe Biden. I think definitely that's going to occur. And as well as that, I think Georgia might also be a lean state. I really think Georgia will go even more to the left. It's been shifting to the left by quite a bit. I mean, just look back at 2008 here. Let's go to 2008. So 2008 was around 5% for John McCain. 2012, 7% for Romney. 2016, it became a 5% margin for Donald Trump. And then now in 2020, Joe Biden wins the state of Georgia by 0.2%. So that was around, a 6% shift to the left. And I think that Georgia, with the victories of Raphael Warnock and John Ossoff, as well as Stacey Abrams, although they passed those voter restriction laws, disproportionately affecting black voters and their ability to vote, by, disqualifying something like handing out water at polling stations. I think definitely it's not going to help the Democrats, but I really don't think it's going to hurt them as much as you would think. And, with the energy that they've gotten from 2020, I think that it'll be pretty difficult for Mike Pence, someone who's very white, to win, and gain support in cities, like Atlanta and Savannah. So I think Joe Biden will do well there, of course. And we also have Stacey Abrams versus Brian Kemp in 2022. That's going to be an interesting race. But Stacey Abrams, I think definitely Stacey Abrams can win. Like, I really feel that Stacey Abrams, if she runs, will win in 2022 in Georgia. She of course, ran against Kemp in 2016, or not 2018, and then she lost by around 2%. That was when you had the Trafalgar poll that showed that Stacey Abrams was down by around 15 points. So, that was so much worse than any other polls, just from 2020. And then, but, the problem for Kemp there is that he doesn't have support from Republicans. He let Trump win the election. He didn't really do anything about it. But now he's, passing laws to restrict the voters of disproportionately Democrats than their ability to vote. So Brian Kemp, I think, has shot himself in the foot there. He's lost the support of Republicans and Democrats now, essentially, in the state. Any Democrats and independents that liked how he set up for, what the results actually were, I think they're completely, just not supporting him anymore. So that's going to be a lean state, as well as that the blue wall. I think these 3 blue wall states will all be lean states for Joe Biden in 2024. I mean, just these states, they were pretty good for Joe Biden, honestly, compared to 2016. Of course, they were all won by Donald Trump by tilt margins. 2020, Pennsylvania was a tilt margin 1.2%. Michigan was 2.8%, while Wisconsin was 0.63%. Definitely they could improve, although these states, are technically shifts to the right, just in demographics and stuff. They've really been a lot more blue in 2008 when Michigan was a solid state, Wyoming was 13%, Pennsylvania was 10%. But that that was just Obama. Obama just had a different effect on voters. If you look at 2004, these were barely Kerry states. 2000, they were barely Gore states, and then even in the 1990s, they were pretty strong for Bill Clinton, but really it was Barack Obama that was able to do it. I mean, these states, they used to be more Democratic, but they just seem so Democratic because of Barack Obama. But nowadays it's a lot less hard. It's a lot less easy for them to win here. But Joe Biden, I think he can win them by lean margins. It really won't be that difficult for him if he does well. A tilt state, the first one. Second district of Maine, I'm giving it to Joe Biden. It was Trump that flipped this. Mike Pence, of course, is not Donald Trump. And, the district wasn't as strong for him in 2020 either. 10% from 2016 down to 2020, 7.4%. But in 2012, of course, this was 8.6% for Barack Obama. So a big shift there. And as well as that, I want to give Joe Biden the state of Arizona, another state that he won in 2020. So this is every state that Biden has won in 2020. And I think that he will flip North Carolina. North Carolina went from around a 2% margin for Romney. 2016 it went up to 3.7 for Trump, and then now it's a 1.3% margin for Donald Trump. Now what you have to remember is that in 2008 the state was won by Barack Obama and Joe Biden on the ticket by 0.3%. So Democrats have definitely won the state in the last couple of years. However, over the last 3 elections, it hasn't been the most successful for them, but I think they definitely have a good chance at flipping this with Joe Biden running against Mike Pence. And then finally, Florida. I'm giving to Joe Biden. Mike Pence just doesn't have an appeal to Florida. I just, just no way. I don't see Mike Pence connecting with Florida. You saw 2012, this was a Obama state. 2008, this was also, again, an Obama state. And Florida, they like incumbents. Florida likes incumbents. They voted for Obama. They also voted for George W. Bush twice. Of course, it was tiny margin in 2000. 2004, it was a stronger margin of 5%. So Florida likes incumbents. 1996, 5.7% for Clinton. When Clinton first ran, this was a Bush state. So Florida, they vote for incumbents. Joe Biden is an incumbent. I think he will do well there. Of course, 2020, Trump was the incumbent. So this is going to give Joe Biden now 350 electoral votes, Mike Pence 188, and that is my presidential election prediction between Joe Biden and a possible Mike Pence if he decides to run an election 2024, which it seems like he is right now. He's been planning quite a few events. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Let's like this video if you enjoyed it. Comment down below who you think would win between Biden and Pence. Subscribe to my channel if you have not. Join my Discord server if you haven't. Link at the top of the description below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.